Hi, I'm Jay, and today we're going to work on this humidifier. Right now, this humidifier does not have water trickling down the drain, even though the furnace is turned on and the humidistat is set high. So, first thing we're going to do is turn the power off and the water off to do our test. Find the saddle valve, turn it clockwise until it stops. This is a Honeywell bypass style humidifier. Here's the bypass duct coming around to the return air duct. Let's take the cover off this thing and look inside. Okay, now that we're inside, you can take a look and see this damper. On the outside, there's an indication, summer, winter. Right now it's in the winter position, which is open. That's summer position, which is closed. So open, closed. We're going to want it open in the winter position. Now, the water comes up through this tube, through an orifice. The purpose of the orifice is to meter the volume of water that goes up into the humidifier and across the filter. So this is metering the volume of water. Then you have a solenoid valve which opens and closes and allows the water to flow through it. The water flows out of the solenoid valve in this black rubber hose, up the hose, into the water distribution tray, through the tray, down through the humidifier filter. Whatever does not get evaporated, down to the drain, and you'll find it trickling down through this hose. Okay, so the orifice sends in just a little bit more water than can be absorbed. The rest of it goes down the drain. Now that water that's going down the drain, the other thing it's doing is it's cleaning this humidifier filter. So excess water cleans the humidifier filter, goes down the drain. During normal operation, you'll see water trickling down the drain as it's running. You should not see water trickling down the drain when the humidifier is not running. If you do not see water trickling down the drain at all while the humidifier is running, there's a problem, either with the orifice, the solenoid valve, or maybe the solenoid valve is not getting electricity because your humidistat's messed up. So now we're going to talk about how to diagnose the solenoid valve. Now that the water is turned off, we're going to make sure that we have water pressure at this point during normal operation. So we're going to get out a couple of open end wrenches, a 1/2 inch and a 7/16 inch. We're going to loosen up this brass nut. Once it's loose, we can hand spin this off. Okay, now we're going to get a bucket out, aim this into the bucket, and then turn the water on and make sure that we have water flying out of this hose. Now that we have the water line disconnected, we're going to take the water line, hold a bucket under it, and I'm going to have my assistant turn the water valve back on. All right, so we have good pressure here. So that means we're good up to this point. There are no clogs or restrictions ahead of this. So let's turn the water back off. All right, now we're going to reconnect this. Now that we have the water turned back on and this line reconnected, we know there's water pressure at this point, but we still don't have water coming out of the humidifier. So next thing we're going to do is turn the furnace back off, turn the humidistat all the way down to nothing so we can get the power turned off to this thing and take it apart. Now that we have the power turned off, let's take this thing apart. We'll pull the cover off. We're going to take out the pad frame. Okay, now we have the feed tube here. We're going to pull the feed tube off. All right, and we're we're going to grab a bucket to point this into. Okay, here's our bucket. Here's a feed tube. All right, now we're going to turn the humidifier back on. Turn the furnace on, turn the humidistat way up to force the solenoid valve to open. Okay, we have the water turned back on. So we have water pressure to this point. The electricity's turned back on, the humidistat is turned up high. The solenoid valve should be open, but we don't have water coming out for this feed tube. Now if I feel the coil on the solenoid valve, this thing's been on for several minutes now, and it feels warm. So we're getting electricity to this coil. So the solenoid valve should be open. We have no water coming out, which means the valve is bad. It is stuck closed. Now, if I were to feel this valve after several minutes and the valve is cold, well, then there's some question as to whether we actually have electricity to it. So the next thing to do, if you're in that situation, is to get out a voltmeter and check it for power. The final test of the solenoid valve is to check it for electricity. To do that, we're going to get out a multimeter and check for electricity here. These are the wires feeding the power to the valve. First thing we're going to do is turn off the power to the furnace and the humidifier to make sure that there's no electricity here. Once the power's turned off, we're going to remove the wire nuts one at a time. Get out our probes. And attach them. So we have the probes attached right now. And we're going to turn the power back on to the valve. So turn the furnace back on, turn the humidistat back up. So we're going to make sure we have electricity going to this valve. Turn the meter on, and we have a little over 27 volts right now, AC power. So we have power to the valve. This valve should now be open. Water is here. We have no water coming out. We have power to the valve. We should have a valve open. If it's not open, it's time to replace the solenoid valve. If you suspect your Honeywell manual humidistat is not functioning properly, you can bypass it. Let's see how to do that. First thing you want to do, turn the power off to the furnace and humidifier. Now that the power is turned off, we're going to open it up and look inside. Now there's only two terminals here, and what we're going to do is bypass these two terminals, which is basically going to short out these two wires. Now I have a set of alligator jumpers here. So I'm going to put one on each. I've now bypassed this switch. You can also do this by taking the covers off of these two wire nuts and twisting them together. So now I have this humidistat bypassed. Next thing I'm going to do is turn the power back on and see if my humidifier starts to work. If it starts to work all of a sudden with this jumper on, but it didn't work with the jumper off, no matter what I did to this knob on this humidistat, then the humidistat itself is faulty. It needs to be replaced. Thanks for watching. For additional help or questions, feel free to contact us.